Hi, everybody. Mark Summers here. Welcome to Mark Summers Unwraps. We've had some great guests over the last couple of weeks, and we're not going to stop now. We have a gentleman who I'm excited to meet because it seems, and I'm going to ask him this question, every 10 years there's a turnover in the voice world. And Eric Bauza, our guest today, is the new king of voices, and we're going to discuss that and much more. Eric, welcome to the show.
What's up, Mark? How's it going, Doc?
See, if I didn't start there, then I shouldn't even be here.
Well, do you get tired of that, though? Do people always say, do this, do that?
You see, no one ever gets tired of hearing me, Daffy Duck. Finally, Mark, I get to be on your show. The ratings are going to go through the roof. Woo-hoo-hoo.
So when you were a kid, were you watching cartoons and saying, I can do that?
I was watching cartoons, period. I think that was it for me. As old enough as I was able to sit up and watch TV, as you could tell, I'm not an athlete.
Me either.
Judging by the dent on my couch, I've probably been there, ever since I was just a toddler, just watching, Saturday morning cartoons. That's the only time we could get cartoons was back in the day it was on Saturday. And that was anywhere between, 6 a.m. till around noon when they start playing either Church or Three Stooges, televised televangelists or Three Stooges. Pick your poison. What's your religion?
I'll take the Three Stooges.
Yeah, that's my religion is Three Stooges. Hey, Mo. Yeah, you have to do it. See, now we got to take a drink. We got to take a shot.
I'm a Victor Sangerson. There was something about that. There's always the tradition that women don't like the Stooges, but I just think that they always made me laugh.
Of course.
And I got to meet and work with Mo.
No way.
Yeah, I was working on a show called Truth or Consequences.
Yes,
and they brought him on.
Oh my god!
And I thought I had died and gone to heaven to get to meet him.
Wow!
Yeah,
in the flesh.
That was.
How much time did you get to spend with him?
Well, he was on for the whole half hour, so he got there an hour early, and he was, aged a little,
sure,
but he still had the sense of humor, and he was the brains kind of behind the whole thing. The sad part about that is the way they sort of went out.
Right.
They got fired,
and
the story goes, I've been told that Mo was working as like an assistant on a bicycle taking mail to people before they got picked up to do those shorts that we saw on the afternoons on the weekends. And Larry ended up in the old folks home, motion picture home, out in the valley, and Tom Bergeron has a great story about calling him.
Yeah, no, I've heard the tapes.
Yes,
I've heard the tapes.
And listening to Larry, and then giving him, I think it was Mo's number, and called him. And of course, Curly died, way too early, as did Shemp.
Yeah,
and people don't realize that three of those guys were brothers.
Right. That's how it was. And there was no setup. And even thinking about Mel Blanc. If we're going to bring it back to voiceover and back in the day, it was either, sink or swim. You just have to keep working and working and working until they say stop or you're kind of out of style or, your shorts or whatever content you were making back then is just not getting the attention that it did. But there was no okay, now what after this?
Right.
Or any kind of protection or residuals for that.
Well, yeah, back in the day, that was not the case. Now, the biggest honor I ever got, I started off as a professional magician, and I was working the Magic Castle.
Wow.
And got heckled by Mel Blanc.
What? No. What
doing Porky.
No.
Oh, my God.
No
it was
way.
1973. Wow. I was working at a place called the Palace of Mystery, which was downstairs at the Magic Castle, not the big frou-frou room they have now.
Yeah.
And I knew he was in the audience, and I introduced him, and he went right to Porky. And I was like, oh, my God. He did everything. And of course, I remember him because I'm 100 years older than you from the Jack Benny show.
Yeah.
When he, was his, he used to do this bit, which I'm not even sure you could do today, where he played this Hispanic character.
Sue.
What's your girlfriend, Sue? What'd she do? See. It was brilliant. And he would do it like every 4 weeks on the show.
Yeah.
And the audience knew all the lines.
Sure.
And yet they laughed.
Well, that's that's a good joke. And that's, thinking about Looney Tunes today, why do these characters resonate? Funny joke's a funny joke.
Yeah.
If it was funny 80 years ago, it's still going to be funny today.
I like to think that.
Yeah.
Let's talk about it. Okay, so you're currently doing you do Bugs.
Bugs Bunny, yeah.
Okay, Daffy.
Daffy Duck, sorry for the spit.
Tweety.
Ooh, I thought I told Mark Summers. Sweet.
and now Pepe Le Pew.
Yes, may we? Are we allowed to talk about these? How old is your audience?
Well, it's all over the place. I thought that they got rid of Pepe because of the Me Too movement.
Yes, even cartoons are not safe.
So, is there no more Pepe?
Well, it's funny because in the last...
I'd say Marvin the Martian Earth creature I've been voicing the longest in my loony career.
Really?
Almost 15 Earth years. Isn't that lovely?
Did Mel do that initially?
Yeah.
He did.
Originally, the voice was like this. It was a little bit more nebbish and nerdish.
In the very first Marvin the Martian short, and then for whatever reason they changed it.
And it became like this frog-throated...
And I think that's a great voice.
Oh, I love that voice.
Such a strange voice for a strange character. But Marvin I've been doing the longest. But in my career, I have voiced Pepe Le Pew, and they kind of reimagined him as like a James Bond type character.
No.
Yeah, so that it was kind of funny because his demeanor and that kind of, like him trying to pour it on, on the ladies was kind of like, okay, we get it because James Bond used to be a womanizer, like a schmooze that way. But in these modern times, they had the female kind of co-star kind of be like, no, shut him down. And it was kind of funny,
So
like
it kind of worked in that.
It worked. It worked. And
Interesting.
I thought it was, cleverly done. And but no one necessarily shunned it or praised it. It was just kind of there, and
always my favorite character. I have back when there was the Warner Brothers stores.
Yeah.
Don't
Oh my
exist
God. There's
anymore.
still one left.
Where?
It's attached to the Warner Brothers studio tour, right in
Burbank?
beautiful downtown Burbank.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I have in my office a Pepe. Taking, I think it's Petunia.
Yes.
Leaned over and he's trying to kiss her neck, and that's one of my. It was always my favorite character.
Yes.
I mean, Bugs was brilliant, obviously.
Yeah.
I was a big fan, believe it or not, of Popeye.
Yeah.
Because all the little things he said under his breath.
Yeah.
If you listen to him, he was pretty funny.
Yeah, he would mutter and whatever that was.
When he wasn't like, whoa.
It was. But Billy West and Tom Kenny do Popeye really, really well. Billy West especially figured out like the splitting the voice. Tuvan folk song and music. Tuvan musical performers can kind of split their voice where it's like a high pitched and a low pitched.
Interesting.
Like buzzing at the same time. You'll have to like YouTube it. But
So-
yeah, Popeye is great.
When you were a kid and you were watching these cartoons, did
Yeah.
you immediately start to do the voices?
What it was for me, not necessarily the voices were always funny, but it was the drawing. I used to be a cartoonist. I'm still a cartoonist.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, before I got into voiceover, if you have a Sharpie and a paper, a piece of paper,
Really?
you could rush it in at any time. I will draw for you, and I'll show you that I was more of a character layout artist and a cartoonist before I became a voiceover.
For what company?
Actually, the original studio that created Ren and Stimpy back in.
Oh.
Sure. I was actually before an artist. I was the studio therapist. We could say. No, I'm just kidding. But,
So back in the Nick days.
not even the Nick days. Sorry. It was literally. This is way past the Nick days.
Oh, so it was after they got fired.
Yeah. This was 1999.
And who were you doing it for at that time?
I was working directly for John Christofalusi.
You were.
Yeah.
Tell me about him. I've heard endless stories.
You got a minute?
Yeah, I mean, difficult is a word that pops up all the time.
Difficult, definitely.
Creative.
Definitely creative. And, I always think about like those original shorts, like the original season and a half of when he was kind of there with the rest of the crew. And I think about like why that show is a complete success. And it's because you had a bunch of kind of same age, like-minded individuals who made up the company Spumco, all the artists that worked there together. And they all worked on those 80s toy commercial cartoons, which, if you were a cartoonist back in the 80s, you were really looking at that 40s stuff.
Mm-hmm.
what we were just talking about, the classic golden age of animation, the Looney Tunes and the Popeyes and the Felix the Cats and all the Fleischers, all that stuff. You were really
Betty Boop.
Yeah, you were watching that, and that's what inspired you to get into cartoons. Now you're working on this like 30-minute long commercial for robots that go from car to robot, you know,
Yep.
or My Little Pony or whatever it was that was paying your rent. They were kind of like given a chance to make a cartoon, Ren and Stimpy, that was not based off of a toy. It was as now coined, a creator-driven show, which kind of opened the doors, and that was around the same time as The Simpsons, Beavis and Butthead, which kind of like also like led into like Powerpuff Girls, Dexter's Lab, Johnny Bravo. All these great shows came in this 90s renaissance because
Well, they got rid of the commercial aspect.
these guys, wanted to work on that. Now, now you're kind of given a lot of praise, and you've broken the mold, and for whatever reason, they started delivering episodes behind and late. I was in high school at the time. I wasn't part of the crew yet.
No, I was at Nick when all that silliness was going on.
You had your wing of Nickelodeon,
Yes.
and there was Ren and Stimpy
Well, and
and
animation
Rugrats.
started to turn the place upside down, you know?
Right. Oh, sure. And because of shows like, I remember being in Canada, in Toronto, watching only the same 4 episodes of Ren and Stimpy
Yes,
over and over
and
again.
over,
Because I'm
yeah.
like, well, and any new ones? Then I finally came out here in like 94 on family vacation, and then I saw a new episode, but it felt a little different. I was like, oh, Ren's voice is a little different. And it still looks the same, but there's still something a little
It was
different.
just off a beat
was-
from
it was-
what I was used to.
Right. So that was when Games Productions took over from Spumco. And I immediately knew. I was like, oh, and then I heard he got fired. And then,
Yeah.
and then he kind of released this magazine, I remember. It was almost like propaganda.
Yes.
Like he kind of taken his own, making his own press.
So Games Productions Inc. was doing it?
So Spumco kind of ended, and it kind of divided the crew in half from what I heard.
Huh.
Is some people left with him and some people stayed.
Do you know why GPI was started?
No.
Because of me.
Really?
Yes. When I started Double Dare, they wanted to not pay anybody union.
Okay.
And I was the only person who said, I'm not working then.
Interesting.
And so they started GPI to pay me through the union.
Really?
Yes, I was the first employee of GPI so that I could get paid for what I was supposed to be getting.
Right.
And so GPI is used.
This
for
is
any-
amazing.
Yeah.
What a crazy
Yeah.
I never thought in a million years that
Yeah,
but
but thought.
but yeah, so that show had continued, and again it kind of just ran its course. And then I fast forward from me through high school into college. I was doing radio, television, film production in Toronto, where they shot Degrassi Junior High.
Oh my!
I was in that exact the whole my campus. They're gonna call it the John Candy School. Like they're gonna rename it, and then Bell Canada, kind of like our Pacific Bell here in the U.S. Like Bell Canada kind of took over. It's called the Bell Center for Media. So I was in there cutting tape with wax pencils and razor blades. Yeah,
like old school.
I was the like as soon as I was leaving is when they introduced they're like,
computers.
have you heard of this Adobe Premiere?
Oh my
yeah,
goodness!
I was like, I was editing on beta
Because that's how we used to. When I went to school at Graham Junior College in Boston, we had a whole course about how to edit with the razor blades and
Yeah.
all that stuff.
Yeah.
And the fact that
that was it. 1999 is when I.
Really?
When I had finally, that was my 3rd year of college because I'd come out here to work at Spumco for an internship. So I was here for like under the better part of a year. Couldn't have happened without my mom's brother and his wife, my uncle and aunt. My uncle passed away 2 years ago, but he was the guy that was always like, "You're going to I have to do it with the thick Filipino accent. You're going to come to Los Angeles and to work on the animation." Yeah, I'm like, okay. I was like 10 years old. I was like, whatever, But he would always send me these newspaper clippings from the LA Times entertainment section, like, Beauty and the Beast breaks box office record. He would always send me the current animation news, and I would always like look at that and go, wow, this is really cool, And aside from the support of my family and my parents, my immediate family, I had my uncle who lived out here that was supporting me, and if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be able to have been an intern, not getting paid a dime, and be out here for a year. You know, my professor told me not to do the internship in LA. He's like,
why?
He said, just be safe and just go work at he wanted me to work at an oldies radio station in Toronto, Foxy 88.5.
Oh my.
Yeah.
He had no idea what he was talking about.
Right. And what's great about that, you know, and if there's any young students or any, you know, artists who've had a door shut in their face, is that it kind of makes you look for a different way, or it kind of challenges you. You know, I didn't take that as an insult. You know, he was definitely right, because it's like, yeah, you don't have to pay rent. You don't have to, you have to do anything. You live at your folks' house and you do your internship, and then you have a secure job when you're done. Like, there was no promise of work after I was working at Spumco.
No.
It was just
Or anywhere in this industry, you know?
Exactly. But what I can say, aside from all like the Me Too stuff about John, and you know, because he did get canceled at one point, I guess,
Yep.
For crazy reasons. But there's still the reason of being a person of power that was using kind of what whoever was around him, what they needed or wanted. He knew I wanted to do voices, but he never really let me do voices until there was like an emergency or something.
Oh, and then he'd throw you in?
That's how I kind of got the role of Stimpy.
I eventually did Stimpy.
I never
Billy
knew
West
that.
will always be Stimpy.
Yeah,
as Mel Blanc will always be Bugs Bunny.
Right, but you got that opportunity.
Billy had turned it down because he was, riding high on Futurama. He was the red M&M.
Yeah.
What would he need? What would he need?
He was the red M&M.
What would he need 18 and up Ren and Stimpy for? he had a crystal ball, and he saw the future in that, and that it wasn't going to be bright.
So you filled in.
So another voice actor who has passed away stepped in, and he took over, and then he started bringing in his own scripts. He started showing up to sessions going, you know, it'd be funnier is if Stimpy, and he had like pages typed out.
No.
So then he was let go.
That's gutsy.
Yeah, well, very. And you're doing that to, you know, at that point still kind of had a little bit of power left in his hands.
Yeah.
And in his
The
name.
guy who created it.
Right. So he kind of was insulted, and he got let go. And then the plan C was not even me yet. It was the plan C was to make Stimpy a mute character. Like
What?
if you watched Tweety and Sylvester and Tweety talk to each other.
Yeah.
If you watch Porky and Sylvester, Porky talks to Sylvester like he's a pet cat.
Right.
And Sylvester doesn't say anything. So that was John's plan. He's like, why don't we make him a mute cat? And I was like, you know, Austin Powers, you know, it was like, I knew you were crazy, but clearly I see you're nuts, you know, like I was like, you're crazy, man. I was like, people will not. And still at that point, I was a production manager. I was still only doing production managing at that point.
Good God.
And finally he was like, okay, well, you can audition, and like reluctantly. And then I started auditioning, and he goes, here's a stack of Three Stooges tapes. Watch Three Stooges. That's what Billy West based his performance off of. And I was a super fan.
Seriously?
Yeah. Stimpy's Larry from Three Stooges.
Hey, Ren. Hey, Mo.
Yeah.
I never thought of that.
Happy, joy.
Yeah. It was his, what he had perfected on the Stern Show was the Larry Fine impression.
I did not know that.
Yeah. And then he said he tweaked it and kind of made it a little bit more childlike.
Huh.
And that's how it became Stimpy.
Wow.
Oh, joy.
Well,
Yeah.
Now it makes sense.
If you listen to it.
Wow.
Yeah. Such
So,
an obscure voice.
Another character that I loved and never saw enough, I don't think they made a lot of them, were the Foghorn Leghorn cartoons.
I say I do Foghorn as well, Mark.
Keep your eye on the ball. Eyeball.
That's a joke,
Yeah,
son.
it's a joke. That's a joke. What a great character that was.
Yeah.
They haven't made one of those in years, have they?
We did a so when I again joined the Looney Tunes family as Marvin the Martian, it was the Looney Tunes show, and this was like 2009, 2010. Jeff Bergman had come back, and he was the guy that kind of took the mantle of Bugs and Daffy.
And why do they? It seems like literally, I said at the top of the show, every 10 years they kind of turn it over. Why is that?
I've learned now it's more or less who's really in charge of the storytelling. And it's funny you say 10 years, because that's exactly how long it was between the first time I auditioned for Bugs, 10 years, and 10 years later, it was this thing that we didn't even know what streaming service it was going to be on yet. There wasn't one for Warner's yet. It was it was then HBO Max. Now it's just called Max. But it didn't even exist when we started production of these new shorts called Looney Tunes cartoons. So they did the Looney Tunes show where they had Bugs and Daffy living in the same house in a cul-de-sac, and their next door neighbor was Yosemite Sam and it was kind of like what was really popular then was Family Guy, animated sitcom style.
Yes.
So they thought, well, why don't we just do that with Looney Tunes?
Really?
And it kind of came and went, and actually, it's getting a lot of attention now. Ironically and weirdly enough, as they're showing reruns of it now on Cartoon Network, and it's actually doing, it's entertaining. It's pretty well written. It was very dry, and it wasn't like, the Looney Tunes that we remember.
Yeah.
But it's still the thing about Looney Tunes in anything like a reimagining like this or a second Space Jam or an AT&T phone commercial is that no matter what world they're in, they're always the Looney Tunes.
Always.
Nothing changes about them, even if they're in the Geico commercial.
Do you do Yosemite Sam as well?
I do not. I mean, like, I don't professionally, but
Right.
ooh, I hate that rabbit. I'm a Hessian without aggression. Yeah.
So
yeah.
who's doing Yosemite Sam?
Jeff Bergman. Oh, actually, Jeff Bergman did it in Space Jam, and Fred Tatasciore is currently doing it for the shorts.
Wow.
Yeah, it's interesting how it again. What I animation brain. I'm always trailing off into so many different movies. It's who's in charge of the storytelling, and what kind of story they're trying to get across.
But the voice is the voice.
But the if you watch Looney Tunes show, which was very dry and very sarcastic, versus Looney Tunes cartoons, where, for instance, Looney Tunes show is very much like the Chuck Jones acting of Bugs and Daffy.
We're going to get into that.
Yeah, whereas Looney Tunes cartoons, Daffy was back to Bob Clampett,
Yeah.
the screwball Daffy.
Right.
And Bugs was a little bit more of an asshole, like more of like a wiseacre than a sarcastic,
A half-lidded arms cross kind of guy,
It was like the "Ooh, I'm dying" Bugs. It was like the more like that Bugs,
I remember all this
Yeah.
stuff. So I'll tell you people that I met that you'll go, oh my God. And most of them actually I worked with on I did another show called Kids Are People Too. June Foray I met. Did
I
you
met her too.
Did you? Because she
did.
lived to be almost 100, I think, right?
Yeah, very much so. I remember because if you see this video, you can't really tell how short I am. But most voice actors are like Smurfs. We're only 3 apples high. Speaking of Smurfs, Smurfette, June Foray. Yeah.
Yes.
I remember being in a session at Looney Tunes, and I was just doing Marvin the Martian, and I saw, and as you know, when you walk into a session, sometimes the call sheet will be there, and the names of the people who will be in studio are there.
Yep.
And sure enough, the only 2 names on that paper, and I swear to God, I'm sure I took a photo of it somewhere. It was like me and June Foray.
Wow.
On one. The other time I ever like freaked out was like it was like me and Kevin Pollak for an episode of Transformers or something.
Oh.
And I'm like, oh my God,
Kevin's a good friend.
Yeah, I was like this the Christopher Walken impression.
Yeah.
But I remember seeing June's name. And it was like she was going to be there in a few minutes. And I had asked the producers if I could just kind of hang out and stay. Because I wanted, because I was like, the microphone's already low for me. But
Right.
then they started lowering it more. And I was like, are you guys recording a dog or a mouse?
No, June's coming in.
No, June's coming in. Yeah. She sits down and she's like a little hunchback. And
I loved her stuff, though. And what about another man who I met, Dawes Butler?
oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. He did some great voices.
Dawes Butler, who else? Don Messick, and then there's
Yeah,
still
Messick.
Frank Welker.
Yeah, Frank still does a boatload of stuff, does he?
Living legend. I
Yeah.
love Frank. Him and Peter Cullen, anytime they're together, he's the, Frank respectively Megatron and Peter, the voice of Optimus Prime.
Right.
Seeing them talk and riff and reminisce
Must
is
be
always
crazy.
I can't,
Welker started as a stand-up and then
Yeah.
got into...
Yeah.
you know,
I would love to see like an old tape of Welker do stand up.
He was actually good, I mean, he was funny.
Yeah.
But I guess the voiceover thing, who was also a dear friend of mine and did a lot of this? Fred Travellina.
Yes.
Did you know Fred?
Fred, yes. Yeah,
He was the
I know the
sweetest
name. And
guy.
he was like one of those guys that was always on like Letterman and
Yes.
you
Yes.
know, Letterman loved impressionists and voice guys.
But he did, I'll tell you something you probably didn't know. The last movie that Jimmy Cagney did,
yeah.
they brought him out of retirement, and he was having a hard time speaking and doing the whole thing, and Frank went in and redubbed the entire thing. That's Frank Welker, not Jimmy Cagney.
Really?
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, another good June Foray dubbing story is Jaws.
Oh,
She
yes.
was the little boy on the
Yes,
beach.
yes.
That was her. I was laughing because I was like, it almost sounds like Rocky.
Yes, I was going to say. Yeah, I mean that Rocky voice was spectacular. Who did Bullwinkle?
It was he wrote a book, the Moose That Roared, I think was the name.
Cannot
of the
think
book.
of his name.
I know. I always like.
That was supposed to be, and I think there might have been a 5-second lawsuit because they said he stole the voice from Red Skelton as Clem Cadiddlehopper, or one of the characters that Skelton was doing at the time.
like a voice like this.
Yes.
Like he was like, wow.
Yeah, that was a story that I heard. Years ago, the story about the Flintstones, where they thought it was too close to Jackie Gleason.
Right.
And Gleason, I guess, tried to sue but didn't win.
Yeah.
But
I mean, the whole concept in general.
yeah, it was the honeymooners.
The honeymooners.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it certainly all makes perfect sense.
And it's funny with that, especially when you're tying it back to honeymooners. They wanted Mel Blanc to have that.
He was Barney, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was. Yeah, sure.
But at first it sounded like this. Hey, Fred, let's go bowling. Let's bring Betty and Wilma.
And it's because he refused. Mel Blanc refused to do a voice match of Art Carney as "Hey Ralphie boy," like "Hey Bonnie." But then he had that accident,
Yes.
and then and when he came out of it, he started doing the voice like this, and no one told him. Like I don't think.
Wow.
I don't think anyone. I think maybe when he kind of like came out of it, they said the voice just started sounding
different.
how they originally wanted it.
Uh-huh. Yeah, he
And it
was in a
was
car
like,
accident. He broke every bone in his body, I believe.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, and was laid out for the longest time. And I think for a while, they were actually bringing the recording stuff to his hospital bed.
Yeah.
And he was recording from there because he
Yeah.
was laid up for like a year.
Crazy.
Yeah, for back in the day. Can you explain, because you know all about cartoons much more than I do, and it's only because I'm 72 years old, I don't get SpongeBob. Explain that to me.
Well, it's kind of like Pee Wee Herman. It's kind of like this boy child, endless kind of like. It's just the spirit of this character is just it's so innocent. He'll always just be like this bright-eyed, bushy-tailed kind of like character.
I never laugh once.
Really?
No, I don't get it. And I know they've made billions of dollars off
gosh.
this thing.
Yeah.
And it's probably the longest running show on Nickelodeon. I just have never understood it. And it's massive globally.
Huge.
It's just crazy. But Family Guy, to me, is brilliant.
Yeah.
And the stuff that they run online that couldn't, I mean, they get away with stuff on the air that I cannot believe.
Yeah.
But the stuff online is off the wall crazy. I mean, you know.
And to think that Seth MacFarlane, they just celebrated a milestone. I don't know if it was 25 years or longer, but how he hasn't written on the show in almost 10 years.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. He kind of like left. I think it was like, he had that and then American Dad. Then he's got Orville and then he started doing these TED and he's a musician. Like, have you heard his albums?
Oh, he's fantastic.
He's like an incredible
He's a great
singer.
Yeah.
Insane.
He can do anything.
Insane.
Yeah, but I know what you're talking about with Peter Griffin. Oh my God.
You know,
He's the best.
I mean, I laugh so hard at that show. And SpongeBob, I can appreciate on an artist level. You know, I get it. I think it appeals more to the younger audience, but my son can't get enough of it.
Okay.
It's funny to see. You know, he's 8 years old. We're talking about kids and grandkids in school.
Yep.
8 years old. In that pocket, it's much different now. Like, he's on his iPad all the time while playing Roblox.
Yes.
Asking me every 5 minutes for $1, anywhere between $1 and $50.
Always.
I'm like, what do you need this for? And it's like,
I'm building this avatar, and you can change the hat. And I'm like,
oh, it costs $5 to change the hat.
Yeah, it's
My
insane.
God, Mr. Frank Roblox, whoever he is, he's
He's
sitting
making
there
a
counting his
fortune.
money. Yeah.
So I started doing Robot Chicken 15 years ago.
Yeah.
And by the way, the residual checks never end. I
Wow.
just
Yeah.
think
Hey, it's Adult Swim.
it is. It's amazing.
Preschool and adult animation, I think, are the only things that
Just
generate
constantly turn over,
Yeah.
and it's amazing. And so I got asked to do it, and I'd never done it before. And I said,
as yourself.
well, initially they had done a takeoff on Double Dare,
Yeah.
and they used somebody else and didn't use me, which really I went, how can you do that without using me?
And then
So then they brought me in to do other stuff. And
Yeah.
I said, I've never done this. Tell me what the experience is going to be like. He said, Well, you should be in and out in 20 minutes. If you take longer than an hour, we'll never see you again. And so I apparently did well because they kept bringing me back a lot.
Nice.
And that was fun.
Yeah.
Really enjoyed doing it. And I got to play, lawyers and doctors and all sorts of crazy things. But my best experience was I was asked to be on the Cleveland show.
Yes.
And it was about how Cleveland and his dad had this disagreement because they both had been on Double Dare, and he didn't get the flag, and him and his dad never sort of were able to put it back together.
Yeah.
So they were reliving it, and they had me as Mark Summers saying, get the flag, and then I was supposed to say, get the effing flag, except saying the real word. And I did about 15 or 20 takes. Get the flag, get the effing flag. And I finally said, hey, can you guys give me some direction there? Because apparently I'm not doing something right. And we've done 18 to 22
They just
takes.
want you to do
and they
it.
said to me, oh, no, you got it in the third take. Just hysterical to hear you say that thing over and over again. So they were screwing with me. But, that's the other gift that keeps on giving, the Cleveland show. And I've done some Nick stuff, and it's fun. Normally, sadly, I only play myself, and I don't have 1/4 of the talent that you have to do a million of those voices, which is fantastic, and which I love. Here's what I want to talk to you about. By the way, you started doing stand-up, right? Back in the day?
You know who tried to get me to do stand-up was Harlan Williams, another Canadian. He's like, hey, Bauza, you're a funny guy. You should. And, Harlan went to school in Canada for animation. He went to Sheridan College. And that was in the 90s, the Disney mothership would come to Ontario and abduct all the Canadian animators from Sheridan and have them
Take them away, huh?
Yeah, that was huge. He had one of the most successful shows on Disney Junior called Puppy Dog Pals, created by Harlan Williams, the cop from Dumb and Dumber who drinks the pee.
Is the guy who's behind? Wow.
Is the guy who created one of Disney's most successful preschool
I had
shows.
no idea.
Puppy Dog Pals.
Good
and he's
grief.
in it as, he's the owner of the two dogs, but he created the show.
So how long did you do stand-up?
Oh, not long.
No?
Not long at all. It was him and Carlos Elizraqui, of course, Rocco's Modern Life and the Taco Bell Chihuahua.
Carlos is just that. Who does the lizard on the insurance commercials?
I'm not sure, actually. That's a great
I've
question.
looked that up forever and I can never find out.
A UK actor? Or
I'm not sure who that is, but it's
Yeah.
amazing.
But Carlos was another guy that who I saw flawlessly do. That's stand up. You do the same set, right?
Yeah.
Over and over again. But it's like a concert. You're going to your favorite singer's concert,
Right.
And you know the jokes. You know how they're going to land, and you just sit there and laugh anyways.
Yeah.
'Cause it's hysterical.
Yeah,
I watched both Harlan and Carlos do back-to-back sets. Same jokes, but two different audiences, two different completely shows.
Right.
Like how they played it, and I'm like, that's an art right there.
Oh, yeah.
And I just never. I felt sick.
Really, it's
felt
hard.
nervous.
I mean, that's how I started. But
Yeah, God bless you guys, because I'm like it's all yours, guys and girls. Take it. Because when I wake up in the morning, I don't think about. I don't have a dream and have a notepad and write the joke. I think about voices and
Right.
voiceover, and my version of going to the gym is watching an hour of Looney Tunes every day.
and did you host a late night talk show at one point?
I had a show for CBC in Canada. It was a 6-episode miniseries called Stay Tuned, and it was about animation. It's actually streaming still on their CBC Gem, and then they actually have it in Australia. But we tackled subjects like racism in animation.
And I want to talk about that because I tried to look at this show and could not see it anywhere here.
Really, it's on YouTube. Some parts of it are on YouTube. Interviews, full interviews that we had to cut down for the episode. They're only 22 minutes a piece, but it was capitalism in animation, commercialism, sexism, racism, and we did a couple other things that were just kind of at the surface of the cartoon, whether it was in your face or buried beneath the surface, and what the intentions were. So we had 3 guests. We had the kind of the comedic kind of soft open. Then we had a professional, either doctor or someone that analyzes this stuff in school, and then we had the outlook of what it's looking like now. It was a very interesting show.
What is the difference between Looney Tunes and Merry Melodies?
I think Merry Melody started with the use of the library of the Warner Brothers music.
I always thought it was all one and the same, but apparently it's not. I mean, that it folds in at some point?
At least the very beginning of it, Merry Melodies, I think, was specifically the use of the Warner Brothers music library. Those are called Merry Melodies. And then Looney Tunes was just like, we're just making these theatrical shorts, I think, for people, moviegoers.
But some of the stuff they did, like when Bugs was conducting symphony orchestras and all that. I
yes,
mean,
Long-Haired Hair is like one of my favorite.
Yes,
anytime
brilliant.
Bugs sings, because Mel Blanc's a brilliant singer.
Yes,
but he can always make
sing
Bugs
Figaro or something. You know.
What did he do on a rainy night in Rio? Where did he go when there ain't no starry sky? Where did he go when they can't go for a walk? Do they stay home and talk, or do they sit and sigh?
Yeah, like those.
You can remember all that.
Always my favorite.
Oh my God!
My girl, she's a hot butt stepper, ginger with salt and pepper.
And then the opera singer,
1 and 2 and 3 and 4, she dances all day long.
and then he,
a rabbit hater, a music hater.
yeah, it's always my favorite.
So I want to talk about the racial stereotypes. I have been schlepping around a documentary for umpteen years about all the racial overtones that were back in the day.
Sure.
And it was pretty intense at some point. And there's a doc that I did find when doing research on you. It's called something like the 11. What the heck do I have it written down here somewhere? But it's about 11 cartoons that I guess
top 11.
Yeah, that were pretty racist.
Yeah.
In the 30s and 40s with stereotypes that were off the charts.
Because that was the going rate. It is the sign of the times. It is, and then also, if you're talking about like Asian stereotypes, that was like we were the enemy, right? They were at war
during World War II. Yes,
and even past that, I remember I had talked about it in the show that I did, where the first time I ever, as a kid, kind of felt like, oh, this is how they see, me or a representation of like my heritage was the episode where Wilma and Betty take judo lessons. Judo chop. It was like, the
stereotype.
It was the Mickey Rooney breakfast at Tiffany's.
Oh, the worst thing ever.
Yeah.
The worst thing ever.
But I can look at that and laugh and be like, oh my God.
Well,
like,
so horrible.
Awful, so awful that you just have to be like, oh
right.
God,
But on cartoons, I don't think you could do that today.
Well, no, with authentic casting, which I think is great as far as like opportunities for equal opportunities and leveling the playing field for
black characters being voiced by black
people that have never I mean, just there's that, but also just like authentic storytelling. But I just hope I don't get canceled for not being a real rabbit when people find out.
I'm not a real rabbit.
Yeah.
I'm a rabbi.
Yeah. No.
You didn't say rabbi, I said rabbit. Yeah.
I don't know. I just feel like
but the things they used to do with especially the African characters, where they would have over-exaggerated lips and and it just as a kid, I remember watching those on a regular basis. Yeah, and I guess
they would air it, and even like the Tom and Jerry's that had like the I think they actually fixed the voice, but it was kind of like that mammy type voice, like the over the top, like stereotypical. There was always like a black lady, African American figure in the Tom and Jerry cartoons with a broom that would always beat the crap out of poor Tom.
Right, but in a particular voice.
Yeah, and it was just kind of like what an interesting choice. Like it could have been anyone.
Yes,
but they just had that character, that depiction, and again. That's just what was regular and expected, unfortunately, but thankfully, we're changing that.
Thank heavens.
Or if you're in a position to kind of like, if you're even we're talking about Pepe Le Pew,
yes,
like changing the scope of it cleverly, or in a smart way to kind of address,
too good of a character to lose.
I think, and if you look at a character like Harley Quinn in the Batman universe, where she can exist in a preschool format all the way up to a rated R like live action movie where there's killing and blood, like and everything in between, how come you couldn't do that with Pepe Le Pew? Like address it in a more adult arena where you can talk about these things,
right?
And because he was supposed to have a cameo in Space Jam: A New Legacy with LeBron,
took it out, right?
But they took it out.
Yeah.
He had 2 cameos, and I remember voicing. One of them, and it was one of them was supposed to be like in the play it again, Sam. Play our song, Sam.
He played
the
a wench.
Casablanca.
Yes.
In that scene, in that same restaurant or diner or cafe, there was supposed to be a scene with Pepe Le Pew and another actress who actually did go through a kind of
Me Too segment?
Yeah,
Yeah.
like she was, treated poorly by some guy, and she wanted to be in the film and kind of like slap Pepe.
But I never thought of Pepe as being Me Too. He was a guy who was, he thought a cat was a skunk and he was trying to make love to it.
Well, and also he never succeeded.
No, ever.
Right.
Ever.
That's the whole joke. And then people often forget that there are a few shorts where the tables turn, where Penelope, I think Penelope Cat, Petunia Pig, Penelope Cat.
That's what it was.
Penelope would find him attractive.
Yes.
And then
chase him.
she would chase him,
And he
would
didn't
hate
like it.
Yeah.
Right.
So, it's funny. It's I think about this interesting theory that Benny Hill, if you remember the old Benny Hill British shorts, they're often depicted, women in a certain light, but he said he goes, yes, the show was sexist because the men never won. They were always beaten by the women.
Yes.
Like he made sure like every segment had the ending where the guys
never
always
won.
failed.
Yeah, he always failed. By the way, the thing I would look at was the Censored 11. That's exactly what it was called. So let's go down memory lane here to a certain extent, but not too far back. Good Times did a cartoon not too long ago. But I as I remember, they got sort of beaten up a little bit because it was a little too old school racially, I think.
Really? Because
Yeah.
they're doing it again.
They're doing it again.
Yeah.
That's interesting because I heard not so good reports that people were thinking it's still too 70-ish.
Interesting.
So that's interesting. The Proud Family
Yes.
on Disney Plus, I believe now.
Yes.
And to me, it's a representation of what the Cosby Show was initially when he went on as a doctor in an upscale family of color. Which you don't see too much even after Cosby was a success and went away.
Yeah.
They made a couple attempts. Nothing was as powerful as that show was.
Right.
But I don't think I'd ever seen it in a cartoon form before, Proud Family. And
Yeah.
seems to be doing really well and it's been on for quite some time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So has animation kept up with the times now? Are they sort of forced into keeping up with the times?
No, I think it's just naturally kind of changing, and I feel like the opportunities again that you're changing the lead from all American cast to some cast of different faces and culture and mixing it up a bit. I think it keeps things interesting and kind of like here's a new twist on a show that you had seen before, just with a different lead now. I think it's interesting. I think it's.
I'm going to give you names, and you give me 15, 20 seconds on each. Disney and Disney Animation.
Well, I think, again, we're kind of relying on, and this is now just every corporation, relying on the same properties that we've seen. They're all about the sequel still. Because it seems...
Do they do anything new?
It seems familiar, and they're not... what's so weird about not taking... It seems like it's not taking a gamble. You're still spending the same amount of money that you would to make a story that wasn't a sequel.
100%.
But I guess they're hoping and banking on the fact that people will go to it because it's something that they have already seen that was a success.
The familiarity of it.
Yeah. But, I mean, look at what happened with Coyote versus Acme.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I did 10 voices on that.
And it never was seen, correct?
Never.
Explain that story.
So we worked on this movie. We were working on this movie. And even at that time, I think when they had merged Discovery and Warner Brothers, one of the first things that I noticed started happening was, okay, we're going to cut every production that is in production now, we're going to cut all the orders in half.
Yeah.
That was like just TV.
Well, they shut down movies.
And animation.
Completed
That's just the TV,
movies were put
and
aside.
Then movies were started to see that.
I think
fate.
Batgirl was put away, right?
Batgirl was like one of the very first ones. And they just said outright, it didn't fill they said in their opinion that it wasn't up to par.
But wasn't it fully edited, shot, done, and they could have released it?
I think they were about 80% of the way there. I think they had already shot like a lot of it. And we're talking with Brendan Fraser and
Yes.
and Michael Keaton
Huge
as Batman.
names.
I was like hopeful, and then
It's sitting on the shelf somewhere.
yeah, and then they do something crazy like put the Flash out after like
Yeah.
all that other
It
stuff.
made no
happened.
sense whatsoever.
So
So
anyhow,
Acme and the Roadrunner.
So we're in production. I do the table read. We start recording for a couple of years. Then this crazy strike happened last year.
Tell them what the concept of the movie was.
Oh, it was based off of a New Yorker
Article.
a satirical
Yes.
comedy about the Coyote suing the Acme Corporation because he's never been able to catch the run. He's never been able to eat a square meal in 40, 80 years.
Right, because of the
the-
Acme company.
The products keep blowing up in his face,
Right.
literally. And he takes them to court and hires this kind of underdog lawyer played by Will Forte.
Yeah, amazing.
Who goes up against the steel brass lawyer John Cena for the Acme Corporation. And, Coyote and Roadrunner don't talk, but there are many cameos of the other Looney Tunes characters within the premise of the film.
And you did a lot of those voices.
I did about 10 of them.
Including Dr. Peter Lorre.
Oh, my.
He plays a very important part in the movie.
But yeah, it's too bad. Dave Green was the director. He directed the second. It was the Michael Bay produced Ninja Turtles movie that had like Bebop, Rocksteady, Shredder, and Krang in it. You know, it had.
And you used to do Turtles, right?
I did a bunch of Ninja Turtles shows, but never any of the features. But having worked with Dave, he's just he just got it. You know, like, and it was one of those kind of like Roger Rabbit movies where there were practical things happening on the set, and they had to animate afterwards. But that stuff takes time.
Yeah.
It takes good execution and setup, and it's just a shame that we literally just finished this like long strike with the writers, long strike with the actors, and that ended on a Wednesday. Dave and I had made plans to start talking about, let's talk about marketing. He wanted me to help with the marketing of the movie. And literally Wednesday, the strike ends. Thursday, nothing happens. And then right before the weekend, we were axed for taxes. And so Batgirl.
So it's done, though, isn't it?
That was in the can. In the can, on time, delivered on time, and came under budget, I think.
It makes no sense to me.
Again, the fact
Did you see the finished product?
Oh yeah.
Is it fun, funny?
Absolutely.
Doggone it.
Why I like it so much too is that it's not like a shoe commercial. It's not like nostalgia for nostalgia's sake. And I've been a part of like any iteration of Looney Tunes where it is a shoe commercial and built for nostalgia. This was just a very simple, basic story about the Coyote and
Who never spoke.
Did
Mel Blanc do the beep beep?
No, that was an artist, a background artist. I think Paul Julian was the name. And Chuck Jones, when he was making the cartoon, Paul Julian would often run through the halls of Warner Brothers going beep, 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 like that. And he's like, you know what? That's going to be the voice of the Roadrunner. So they recorded him doing beep, beep, and then they would speed it up and modulate it.
Oh, I had no idea.
That was the Roadrunner's voice.
Oh, my
but
God.
I did get to do those beeps in the movie because they're asking him questions.
Right.
And it's like 2 beeps for yes, 1 beep for no. And then it's beep, 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 and then do you have any closing remarks? And it was like beep, 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 beep. And then there's like subtitles. Yeah, it was so funny, like it was just
unbelievable.
Really a sweet movie. And
have you seen the clip where the Roadrunner, finally gets taken by Wiley, and how he's like on a binge and can't seem to find his life? And have you seen this online?
No.
And he comes out and he becomes a Jehovah's Witness.
No.
You should look it up. It's really quite funny. Let's talk about Walter Lantz, probably the softest of all the animators.
Right.
I
mean, look,
his wife did Woody, didn't she?
Gracie Lantz.
You do Woody though, right?
I do Woody.
And it's funny when I had auditioned for that, I had taken because there have been many performers of Woody Woodpecker in over the years.
Yes,
including Mel Blanc, who kind of donated that laugh.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he was the very first actor to portray a Woody Woodpecker, and then there was Ben Bugs Hardaway, who Bugs Hardaway was his nickname, and actually gave the name to Bugs Bunny, because they they had seen, they were like looking at model sheets in the early days of Bugs, and his name was Ben Bugs Hardaway, and then he had written Bugs' Bunny, like Bugs Bunny.
Ah.
And Leon Schlesinger said, well, that's a good name, Bugs Bunny. Let's name him Bugs Bunny. But Ben Hardaway was one of like my favorite voices of Woody Woodpecker, because he kind of was just the generic guy. And I remember finding a clip of him specifically and taking that clip and a clip of Mel and a clip of Billy West, because Billy West also portrayed
Didn't
Woody
know
Woodpecker.
that. Billy's done everything.
He's done it all. He's done Popeye. He's done Bugs. He's done it all. One of my heroes. But I had taken all of their files, and in Final Cut Pro, I had pitched them down so I could hear what they sounded like without all the modulating and effects. So I could find my voice, my comfortable speaking voice for Woody, and then they would affect that. So it's like listening to Alvin and the Chipmunks, but like pitching
speed
it
it
down.
up, but yeah.
Yeah, so you could hear what the actual actor sounded like. And the way Ben Hardaway talked was kind of like this. I guess like back in the 30s and 40s, that's just kind of how they talk. Very proper and announced, and, you know, and that's kind of how I did my Woody, was like kind of like this. Like, hey, and then they would pitch that up and it would become Woody Woodpecker.
Because the Chipmunks were all speeded up, correct?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Charlie Fleischer did
Roger Rabbit.
Roger. Right. I remember that.
Another stand-up.
Yeah, he started off at the Comedy Store same time I did.
There was a reel that someone had posted recently. Of course, everything's on Instagram or TikTok
Yes.
now. But it is an animation test, an early like it didn't even look like Roger Rabbit. A very early animation test of Roger Rabbit, where it was Paul Rubens as
What?
Yeah, it was Pee Wee Herman as Roger Rabbit, and it's interesting.
No
it was
idea.
funny. It was great, but there was something about what Charles Fleischer did to create this voice.
Yeah.
That I can't hear anyone else do.
No. No. I was surprised they didn't do more of those, as a matter of fact. It was such a hit.
They did a bunch of shorts, like
Didn't Charlie do the voice on all those?
yes, they were like standalone shorts.
I don't remember those at all.
There was Tummy Trouble, Roller Coaster Rabbit, and there was one where they're camping in the woods, and they are all great. It was as if they did make those cartoons, like a Looney Tunes cartoon.
Interesting.
It was really well done, very well done.
Who are the animators behind?
Bill Kopp. Bill Kopp was like one of my neighbors. Actually, it was kind of bizarre. You never know who you're gonna live next door to in the valley.
Yeah.
if you're in that area. But he was the guy who created Eek the Cat in the 90s. That was on Fox.
Yeah, you kind of had this voice like this.
That kind of lisp. And he worked on The Simpsons, and then he worked on those. He really loved Roger Rabbit. Because he said, even when we designed Roger Rabbit, we kind of made him look like Sylvester. If you look at the way Roger Rabbit looks,
Yeah.
and the way Sylvester looks, like the big nose.
Now that you say it, I see
kind
it.
of like that. Sylvester has that mask with the whiskers.
Yes.
and Roger kind of almost has that kind of shaped
Never
face.
thought about that much.
He has that pear-shaped body.
Yeah.
like skinny up here, and then like the big legs.
Yeah, it sort of juts out.
It's like Sylvester.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tex Avery.
Oh man, that's like what gave Family Guy its timing. Like that pinpoint. First of all, every drawing in Tex Avery, for whatever reason, all the drawings are so solid. Construction, we like to call that an animation. It's constructed well.
For those of you who don't know, he was an animator at Warner Brothers.
Tex was one of the big guys that, like, the Godfathers, between him, Chuck Jones, Bob Clampett, Friz Freleng.
They were the roots, the guts of that whole time of fantastic Warner Brothers cartoons.
There's I went to the Chuck Jones Gallery at one San Diego Comic-Con to listen to Willie Ito talk. He was one of the only Japanese American artists on the Chuck Jones unit that worked on like What's Opera Doc.
Oh, mighty warrior of great fighting stock, might I require to ask me, what's up, Doc?
Yeah. So he said he had these amazing stories about. Can you imagine being on the Warner Brothers lot like in the 40s?
No.
Like he said, Chuck would take us all to lunch at Smokehouse.
Oh, of course.
Classic,
Still there.
Still there. World's greatest garlic bread.
Yep.
And I don't work. There's not a promotion for Smokehouse.
But it is
if you
the
want-
world's greatest
If you
garlic
want to
bread.
send some to us and Mark here, we'd be happy to accept your garlic bread. But he'd say he would bring us there, and Chuck would be like, "Okay, everyone, drink up." Like he would, if you're with Chuck, you would have to drink what he was drinking, which was always like a double martini at lunch at 12 o'clock at Warner Brothers. And Willie said he got so drunk one time that he drank at Smokehouse, but ended up waking up on Chuck's couch at 3 p.m. So like a few hours had passed. He'd passed out. And he said he remembered like waking up, not even remembering how he got back to the studio, which is just across the street.
Yeah.
But like, imagine waking up on your boss's couch in the office and just watching Chuck. Like he said, he woke up and I saw Chuck's back just drawing.
Oh my.
And I'm like, my God, like what like this is history. And he said, our office is on the lot. Because it used to be on Sunset. The original Termite Terrace used to be on Sunset.
I didn't know that.
And then they moved that
to Burbank.
To Burbank.
What year was that? Do you know?
The very, very early years. And they said that's where like the name Termite Terrace like got its nickname because the building was so like dilapidated.
I didn't know that.
Full of termites.
Good grief.
So he said we moved to the lot, and he goes, back in the day they would shoot nothing but westerns on the lot. And that's just not what was the going rate. Again, he said, so when any one of us had a day off, the rest of the crew, if they knew the person was coming back, they would take a cake box, fill it with horse manure, and put it under that person's desk.
Oh, my God.
Now, back in the day, they used to have those heat lamp tables, animation desks, so you could see through the paper. It was like but those lamps, they're not like the ones we have now. They were like, they would heat up.
Yes.
So he said
Must have smelled horrible.
Well, it was crazy because like, aside from the fact there was horse manure there, the regular routine for them was they would work for 10 minutes on this hot desk. And you're talking about like California in the 40s. Maybe there's no global warming. Like there's global warming now, but it's a hoax. We all know that. But now, I mean, back then, I'm sure they probably didn't even need air conditioning.
No, or didn't have it anyway.
But he goes, what did we do after 10 minutes of working on a hot desk? We'd turn the lamp off and take a 5-minute break, but we'd smoke at our desk.
Oh, my.
Can you imagine? Like,
no.
You're heating up. And then the way to cool down is to
Just
like
smoke.
stick something, have a cigarette. But he said the joke was that like the box would heat up under the lamp of like horse manure. But I'm like, wouldn't that just be horrible for everyone?
Everybody. Absolutely had to be the worst.
And then the last story that he told was the offices were next to like where the chorus line girls would audition. And that like one time he said Chuck caught all the guys like looking through the blinds. And they were just out on the lot sitting, just waiting their turn to go in and dance for an audition. But they would be in costume and just be sitting there. And he said all the animators were by the window trying to sneak a peek. And he said Chuck saw us and he snuck up and he pulled the blinds up and tried to embarrass us. But he said he must have pulled it up so fast because he said he must have clipped the tip of my nose off.
Oh, my gosh.
like he like hit his nose. But I'm like, my God, like little rascals. These guys were kids.
They were kids,
These guys
but
were children.
yeah. Bob Clampett,
Yeah.
who I remember mostly from Beanie and Cecil.
Right.
But
right.
he had a whole career before that.
Oh, yeah. I mean...
By the way, Beanie and Cecil, also brilliant. Okay? I mean, the stuff that they used to do.
But Bob Clampett, I think, was like the animation that he did with Looney Tunes. I know Chuck will always be like kind of like what we remember as like the definitive kind of like
Rabbit thieving, duck
Right.
season, rabbit thieving. I'm sorry, fellas, I can't wait any longer.
yeah. I think that's what we remember. They were so polished. But like the earlier days, I really do think that Bob Clampett's cartoons were like the art wise, they were just gorgeously done.
They were. Beautiful paintings.
The animation, the paintings,
Yes.
the extremes. It really felt like these characters were like out of control characters, these Looney Tunes. And he's the guy that created Tweety. He created Tweety
I didn't know that.
based off of I think it was like a baby picture of Ruth Clampett. Like he
Really?
like drew this like big-headed bird that kind of, because he looks like a baby.
Yeah.
It's funny. Both Tweety Bird and Elmer kind of share the same kind of like silhouette. If you look at like
Yeah,
Elmer's head,
I can see that.
that big bulbous
Yeah,
head. But he's the one that created Tweety
know that.
in the Looney Tunes universe.
Do you remember a cartoon that they did, and maybe they only did a film called Schlep Along Catskill?
Yes, I know that name.
Do you know that name?
Yeah.
And I'm trying to remember who did the voice. I think it was supposed to be a Jackie Mason kind of voice, but somebody did it instead of him.
Right.
And I almost
What
wanna
year
say-
was that?
Oh my God! It was in the '60s, I believe. I want to say it was John Biner who might have done it.
Oh, of course, because
You know?
he did the Ant and the Aardvark.
Yes, that's true, and that was brilliant stuff.
Yeah, that was Pink Panther. Like,
yeah,
in
that
that
was
era.
so good.
I remember they did bring me in to kind of do like a Jackie Mason kind of voice,
Yeah.
like this. You know, I
Yeah.
was the Aardvark and Schlep Along Catskill. You know, whatever you need in the Caddyshack sequel.
Yeah, it was fantastic. Chuck Jones.
I mean, yeah, I love Chuck's stuff. I own actually. Do
you have cells?
Some of his cells.
Oh.
I actually own his cells from Mrs. Doubtfire.
No.
He animated. If you watch that movie again, Robin Williams is a voice actor at the very beginning of
Yes.
the movie where he's playing this cat and bird. And I
And
bought.
Chuck did those.
He did that
I
animation.
didn't know that.
He also did the animation in a very obscure, one of my favorite movies with John Ritter and Pam Dauber. Stay Tuned, where John Ritter gets zapped into the TV.
I didn't know that.
And he and his wife Helen get turned into these cartoon mice.
Yes.
And that was all animated by Chuck. So
didn't know
I
that.
own cells from that movie.
That must have been one of the last things he did.
Oh yeah. I think Mrs. Doubtfire. Actually, he did one character. Timber Wolf was the name of the character that he did with Warner Brothers before he passed away. But it was like I don't even know. It might be on YouTube, but I think Joe Lasky was the voice. And
Joe. He used to be an announcer on one of my shows.
Yeah, right.
Wow. That's
Joe
crazy.
Lasky.
Joe
Yeah,
Lasky.
he was. He did Plucky Duck.
Yeah.
He was Plucky on Tiny Toons, and he was Bugs Bunny.
I love his bugs because he had like the kind of warm, soft, that gravity of his voice like Mel's.
Yeah.
It was very similar, but he was great at Daffy.
Died way too young. Boy, he was like 61, 62, I think, when he passed away.
Really?
Yeah, which was shocking.
Wow.
And I think back of other characters, like Mr. Peabody was always a brilliant character. All that stuff that they did on Rocky was
Rocky
also-
and Bullwinkle, yeah.
I think about some of those things too. And Frizz Freeling. Tell me about him.
Either Frizz was more responsible for the Foghorn Leghorn and Barnyard Dogs. You see that?
Yeah, I'm a chicken hawk. I want to get a chicken. Yeah, you see that little house over there that says DOG? That spells chicken. Now go get him, boy.
Yeah, that was I was like, I die every time because like he's an idiot. He's just
Total idiot.
You're a loudmouth schnook.
Yeah, that's what Barnyard Dog. I love that name too, Barnyard Dog.
Barnyard Dog,
the
right?
brown and white dog, the beagle, I guess, that was just always tormented by Foghorn.
Hysterical.
Doo-da. Like he would just walk gingerly over and like smash a pot on his head and then wake him up.
Exactly. He would smash the pot.
And he would know how long the leash was because he
Yes.
would run and there'd be a line.
And they would, yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Ah, shut up.
Yeah.
So go through as many voices as you like and say thanks for listening to Mark Summers Unwraps starring Eric Bauza.
What's up, Doc? Bugs Bunny here. Thanks for listening to Mark Summers Unwraps with our very special guest, Eric Bauza. That Eric Bauza, he's despicable. Mark, on the other hand, hell of a guy. Legend in his own right. Yeah, that's all, folks.
Yeah.
Brilliant career. The history and the knowledge that you have on this art. I respected you before. I respect you even more because
Shucks.
you have the knowledge of where this all came from.
I always say, I'm a fan first. A fan of yours, a fan of cartoons, like showbiz. And hearing you say that you got heckled by Mel, I think about that. And it itself is already, and you're doing magic in the castle.
Yes.
Like, and boy, next time I'm interviewing you.
That would be fun. I'd look forward to that.
Because I want to hear these stories. Those are more interesting to me.
No. Eric Bauza, a fantastic guest. We'll see you next week on Marc Summers Unwraps. Stay tuned. Marc Summers Unwraps is a production of Believe Limited, created by me, Marc Summers, and Jessica Richmond. Produced by Keith Korneluk and Jessica Richmond. Executive produced by Patrick James Lynch and Ryan Geelan. Post-production support from Joshua Sterling Bragg and Believe Limited. Don't forget to subscribe or follow the show on your favorite podcast player, and if you really love it, why don't you leave us a rating and a review? Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on Marc Summers Unwraps.